we are about to do a live stream to talk about why June is going to have the hottest month for the UFC, and May, not so much, but guess what May has? May has the hottest boxing going into June, just a pregame for all the UFC that you are craving for. So in May, you got two big boxing matches, maybe even three if you are a big Lomachenko fan. And obviously, I'm a big Lomachenko fan. I love his style. I love the way that he puts things together. He's still one of the best in his weight division, even though he's been tested a few times with some other big names and has lost to the likes of Devin Haney and Lopez. He's also taken on Kambosos, which, by the way, is a great matchup in and of itself. Is it a 50-50 matchup? Maybe not. I would probably lean towards Lomachenko on the 60-40 side, but still a very winnable matchup for Kambosos. And if he wins it, well, I tell you what, it'll be a big shocker. And speaking of big shockers, we got Jamie Munguia taking on Canelo Alvarez. Is this a good fight for Canelo? Some will say that it's not a good fight for Canelo. Some will say that this is the time that Canelo is going to find somebody that has his number, at least within the range of his weight class. And in other circumstances, in the extreme end of it, being sort of drawn out in the way that Floyd Mayweather drew him out as a result of their boxing match, where he had to drain down all the way to 152, which is probably at the lowest of Canelo's entire career. And he's quite a big guy, right? 152 is quite small for him to get down on, and Floyd Mayweather knew that. So the Bivol fight was sort of in that same other extreme end of that fashion. In other words, he moved up way too much. Yes, he's beaten the likes of Kovalev and among other big 170-pounders, but once again, this is not Kovalev, nor is it Callum Smith, or anybody else that is a normal 175er. He took on Bivol, and Bivol schooled him as a result of that. Now, with Jamie Munguia, losing to him is a whole lot bigger because obviously it's predicated on the 168-pound undisputed championship. So that means it's his real weight class. It's a weight class that he's adjusted to. Yes, it's a weight class that he's moved up on because from what we all remember, Canelo is at 154 and at best 160. However, being beat at 168 is really going to solidify the idea that perhaps maybe he's just done and over with. And Jamie Munguia may be that guy because guess what? Jamie Munguia has an amazing style that can really present serious problems for Canelo. So that's what you got going on in May, on top of the fact that you have Usyk versus, finally, Tyson Fury. We've been waiting for this for a very long time. Now, what has happened? Obviously, there were some delays. Tyson Fury had some injuries going on. He got cut very badly, and he didn't want to go into that fight compromised back in February. So as a result, here we are. So once all of that is done, from May 19th all the way to June 1st, you're going to be waiting for a big UFC card, which is what? Dustin Poirier taking on Islam Makhachev for the 155-pound strap, undisputed, in my home state of New Jersey. As we are enjoying this beautiful morning California ride that I always take you guys on every morning. But here I am in California, and that fight takes place in New Jersey, and that's going to be in June. I got to tell you, growing up in New Jersey, June is one of the most humid months in that particular part of the world. I'm talking about the type of heat that really stings on you, right? You can feel it. It's a different kind of heat that you get out here in California. You see, at least here in California, you have the heat, but you also have the hills, you also have the ocean to sort of mitigate that particular humidity. Now, there are seas and there are beaches, I guess you could say, in New Jersey, New York, and that particular part of the world, but still, the humidity is not in comparison in the summertime. You kind of like that old school song that goes, hot town, summer in the city, da 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 da. But anyways, June is not only going to be Islam Makhachev, but it is also and Dustin Poirier, but it's also going to be the return of the notorious Conor McGregor. Hiya, buddy, says, a card looking nice, homie. Thank you, my man. Thank you. So June 29th is going to have Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier. After that, it's going to be Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor on the 29th. So on both ends of that month, the first and the last are going to have 2 blockbuster hits, right? And then you're going to go on with the rest of your summer. Who knows what the July cards are going to look like. But we definitely know that in the summertime of Australia, we're going to have Izzy taking on Dricus du Plessis, the highly anticipated matchup. So overall, we got a great summer of fights, right? You got Izzy on August. You got Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor in June. And then you got Islam and Dustin Poirier in the beginning of June. And May, I don't know what they got going on in May. It's not really all that big, right? So May 4th, on the same day that I believe Canelo Alvarez is fighting, I believe you're going to have, I'm not even sure what the fight card is. I know one of them is going to be Derek Lewis. I believe that's either going to be on the 11th or on the 4th. Please give me a heads up on the comment section below if you know for sure, right? Because I don't have the information in front of me, obviously. I'm just doing this impromptu live for the heck of it, and here we are. But rest assured, May, you got to be a hardcore fan to appreciate the UFC that they have going on in May. Because it's not going to be those blockbuster hits. They're edging you into it a little bit. You see what I'm saying? There's an edge factor that they are trying to pull in this particular instance. In other words, yes, they're putting on a card that is somewhat lackluster, a card that they sort of need to push because they need to push other fighters or because they need to push a certain agenda of dates that they have to fulfill for ESPN. And the list goes on as to why you're seeing a lot of matches that you're not interested in. Here's another thing you got to understand. You may not be interested in certain matches that they put on in the Apex, but you got to remember, as big of a star as Sean Strickland is right now, you have to remember that his stardom was forged in these Apex fights. Okay, eventually, after he got out of the Apex fights and got that shot against Israel Adesanya, now all of a sudden, Israel Adesanya lost to Sean Strickland. And as a result, Sean Strickland took all his superstardom, and not only did he take all his superstardom, well, not so much take his superstardom, he sort of made his own superstardom based off of that win. Now, Sean Strickland, looking back at it, really became a star because of the Apex, the same Apex center that you guys complain of every week because, oh, it's not the biggest fight in the world, or it's not really an exciting card, or because it's just another boring week. But I tell you what, man, these boring weeks within MMA, they really make MMA. They make the future of MMA, so never forget that before you go and you trash it. Now, as hardcore fans, we're definitely never going to trash the Apex centers. Never. We're never going to trash it. We're going to love it because we love all the fights. But for the casuals, I mean, it's easy for them to sort of stick it to the Apex Center. Oh, well, the Apex Center is whack. These fights are no good. Or we don't know these guys. Well, now you're going to get to know these guys. Because even though it was a contender series, Sean O'Malley was forged in the Apex Center. So never forget that. Speaking of which, I got a new video out that I want you guys to see. It's called Conor McGregor's Last Stand in the UFC. It's the latest video that I have on my video section right now regarding the Conor McGregor contract. I'm going to talk to you briefly about that, and then I want you to get the rest of the information on that video. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you with this video and the message that I'm trying to convey is that they want to run Conor McGregor's contract out. Why do they want to run his contract out? For the simple fact that they believe he's already done and over with. I'm going to tell you something exclusive that I didn't say in the videos. The way that Conor McGregor is partying, the way that he is ruining his body on a daily basis with drugs and alcohol, and the fact that he has a hard time staying away from it because of the access that he has to alcohol, I gotta be honest with you guys, the UFC knows and understands this. You see, the UFC, as Dana White, as the owners, but in particular Dana White, he understands something about fighters that you don't know from a historical standpoint, which is what? He knows that fighters deteriorate over time. And as a result, they know how much they can really squeeze out of them, especially with a big star like Conor McGregor. So what they're going to do is perhaps maybe sabotage this entire promotion. And I want you to pay attention from now till June how the UFC behaves in the way that they're promoting this fight towards Conor. Are they doing it in a way where they are making Conor McGregor look like the most epic force in terms of marketing in the UFC and in the entire MMA industry? Are they going to do that? Or are they going to just do the bare minimum, knowing that Conor McGregor is going to bring a certain amount of money anyway, but won't spend too much above beyond their means that's going to somehow challenge their budget issues? Right? In other words, they're not going to go all out for investing in Conor McGregor when they know that the return investments is going to be very few, far and in between what they are used to with Conor McGregor. Because let's face it, he's the type of guy that can lose fights and still be marketable. Is he not? The problem is that we don't know if the UFC wants to continue doing that. We don't know if they want to continue allowing this guy to be a problem. And look, I'm going to tell you a little spoiler on that video before you guys check it out, because more than likely, most of you that are watching this live stream right now have probably seen this live stream first, and then you're going to go see that video that I made with Conor McGregor after. But at the end of the video, I said the list goes on. I want you to pay close attention to the last thing that I say before the video cuts out in that. I said the list goes on. Well, now here I am. I'm going to explain to you what that list is. Constant scandals, constant allegations of the most horrible things that you could think of. Is the UFC prepared to protect a guy like that? Now, here's something you got to understand about the UFC, right? These guys are willing to, hold on, let me read this comment by Hiya Buddy. He says, I think the way that they had announced it at the press conference said it all, especially that they mentioned Islam and Dustin fight 2 years ago. It would have been its own 1 hour special. Wow, okay, Hiya Buddy makes a good point there, because it is exactly the point that I am trying to make, and I think that he sees exactly what I'm seeing right now. So yeah, very lackluster, low energy from Dana White. It's not like, oh, Conor McGregor is fighting, yeah! It's not that kind of excitement. It's like, yeah, so Conor McGregor is fighting Michael Chandler. Yeah. All right, the show goes on. And you have to ask yourself real legit questions. Why is Dana White such lackluster in the way that he's announcing Conor McGregor? Look at the way overweight Dana White announced Conor McGregor when he was fighting Floyd Mayweather. And now, coming to the stage, the notorious Conor McGregor! Oh my goodness, Dana White went red. You could see his pale face turn red when he was screaming for excitement. Because guess what? At the time, he truly believed in Conor McGregor. To the point where he knew that, hey, you know what? Why don't we just send you to box Floyd Mayweather? Maybe you're the guy to knock him out. Floyd has never took on knockout artists like this before. Yeah, let's take a chance. Let's do it. Well, the problem is we found out that boxing is boxing and Floyd is one of the greatest of all time for very good reasons. Very legit reasons that we can't deny him of. So now that belief is no longer there. Yes, the Jorge Masvidal Nate Diaz boxing match was sanctioned by the UFC, by the way. They allowed it to happen. But that is a different circumstance with MMA on MMA boxing as opposed to MMA on boxer boxing. You understand? So that's why they allowed it, because they can take no losses either way with Nate Diaz boxing Jorge Masvidal. Although that is on the same day, I believe, as Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier. So I don't know, man. You know, I think the logic behind why they decided to have a boxing match with Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz as a rematch on the same day as Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier, I'm going to tell you right now. The reason being is because you have to take into consideration that Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier are sort of a hardcore fan's dream. In other words, if you're a hardcore fan, you're going to gravitate towards watching the Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier fight, even though Dustin Poirier doesn't deserve this in the way that Arman Tsarukyan does. And by the way, why did Arman Tsarukyan not get this fight and it was Dustin Poirier? Because guess what? The UFC agrees with you guys that Arman Tsarukyan has to be the guy to take on this fight, but they called him and he turned down the fight based on a short notice that he did not want to take. And quite frankly, as an Islam Makhachev fan, I don't blame him, because you don't want a half-assed camp to take on Islam Makhachev just so you can fulfill the UFC's goals of calendars they're trying to fill up during the year. That's the reality of it. So you can't blame him for taking that stand. However, the problem is, a lot of people don't believe Dustin Poirier deserves that fight, but nonetheless, Dustin Poirier is a hardcore fan's favorite. So is Islam Makhachev. And they decided, you know what? We're going to give you guys two options that are going to be good for the UFC's bottom line. So we know that perhaps maybe Islam Makhachev by himself is not a great pay-per-view draw. But Jorge Masvidal is a big pay-per-view draw. Nate Diaz is a big pay-per-view draw. Let's just stretch out our resources all in one day. So we get the boxing money on the same day, and then we get the UFC money on the same day, and it'll be on both sides of the coast. Obviously, the fight with Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal is going to be taking place in Inglewood, California, which is obviously Southern California. On the other side of that, you have Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier fighting in New Jersey. So that's a different market that they're hitting up. They're hitting up the East Coast and the West Coast on the same day. Two different sports and two different time slots. So they got the hardcore fans of MMA, and then they got the casuals that are either boxing casuals or MMA casuals watching Jorge Masvidal if they're not interested in Dustin Poirier. And I think that's the reason behind why they're doing that. Now, would they do that on the same day as a Conor McGregor card? Absolutely not. They would never do that on the same day as a Conor McGregor card. And with good reason. Because if you were to do that for a Conor McGregor card, I mean, you're really just stretching out your whole entire resources. So once again, even with just that one boxing match with Jorge and Nate Diaz, June is a big month for the UFC. And May, I gotta tell you, that is straight up for boxing. You got Canelo versus Munguia. You got Kambosos taking on Lomachenko in Australia. And then you got the undisputed championship fight with Usyk versus Tyson Fury. And by the way, I'm going to talk about that a little bit right now with the Usyk and the Tyson Fury fight. So I think the best thing to sort of look at with this fight with Tyson Fury and Usyk is what will happen after each guy wins. Let's create a scenario, right? What would Tyson Fury do? In my humble opinion, I think Tyson Fury is on his way out. I don't think he wants to take on any of the new challenges that are out right now, because Hrgovic, who is that guy? That anybody know him? No. He's not going to take a risk in that. Zhang, very dangerous guy. He's not going to want to take a risk in that. Daniel Dubois, who made a great account of himself against Usyk, but still lost, he's not going to want to take the smoke on that. So there's a lot of heavyweights that he's not going to want to run it up with, and with good reason. So what is the next best thing to do? Retire. Now with Usyk, I got to tell you, even at 38, 39 years old, however old he is, he's going to continue. He will fight those names that I had mentioned, won't be a big pay-per-view star as an undisputed champion, but will garner the respect of all boxing fans and combat sports fans alike, based on his status in the game as being an undisputed world champion. So that's what you got going on with Usyk and Tyson Fury as the possibilities. Is he going to run it up against Anthony Joshua perhaps if, let's say, Tyson Fury wins? Yes. I think that is a fight that he will take just based on legacy factors. But ultimately, I think that will be it for Fury. One or two more fights, and that's really all there is to it. It's going to be curtains from there. But as far as Conor McGregor, I got to tell you, check out the video that I have for that particular topic. I'm going to get out of here in a few minutes. I'm probably going to talk about just a few more things and then just call it a day, right? But let me tell you what I think you're going to get out of that video, which I think is really important to sort of relay in this message before I go. What you're going to get out of that video with the Conor McGregor one that I had just uploaded, you're going to get possibilities of what will happen if Conor McGregor was to win or if Conor McGregor was to lose. For one, if he was to win, I think you will continue and see him in a BMF title picture with Max Holloway, making that match a whole lot bigger than the first time that they had fought each other as young prospects. And now with different circumstances, mind you. If Conor McGregor was to lose, then it's ultimately going to be in the favor of the UFC, because then he has one fight left in his contract. They're either going to use it to squeeze him out of it, or they're going to just let him retire off of that loss against Michael Chandler and then potentially hold him for the rest of his fighting career, because whenever he decides to come back, it has to be with the UFC, and it's going to be one fight left. And as a result of that, it may be even harder for him to get that Saudi boxing deal, which, by the way, is something that he's really craving for. Or the UFC is working side by side with the Saudis, allowing Conor McGregor to run out his contract just so he can go box for the Saudis and then eventually come back and fight MMA for the UFC as well. But under no circumstances, I don't think you're ever going to see Conor McGregor fight MMA in a different organization. He's too loyal to the UFC. He's too synonymous with the UFC. And him fighting anywhere else would be deemed as absolute failure to the organization of the UFC in general. So that is all that I have for this 25-minute stream. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Please check out my new video on Conor McGregor that is on my video section right now. And I will see you guys in the next one, inshallah. All right, more bonus content in the near future to come, inshallah.